When you think about ask yourself a question. Do you think the guy who was defeated by the stairs, got taken down by his bike, lost a fight with his jacket, and regularly gets lost, makes it 4 more years in the White House? And you know who's waiting behind him, right? Vote Joe Biden today, and Kamala Harris tomorrow.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome. So we are here, gathered today, because originally I thought this was going to be what I was hoping it was going to be, which was going to be Biden announcing he was going to step down. Then, as I started reading more, it appears that this is going to be a reaction from former Vice President Joseph Robinette Biden on the immunity hearing that took place today, or that came out today, which is probably pretty good for the president. It seems to be pretty good for the president. So that's allegedly what this is going to be. I don't know if he's going to touch on other topics, but Joe really has to be careful here, because there might be some acts, and it kind of just seems like the way that it's quiet. Let me see if I can pop it up a little bit. Does that make it any better? Whoa, that's loud now. Let me turn that down on my end. All right, let's go back to general, and we'll turn it down to like 75%. All right, hopefully that's a little bit better. That looks a little bit better on the graph, but yeah. Anyways, I think that some caution should be taken. It kind of seems like our political system is one full of retribution at this point, and this may be a bad idea for President Biden moving forward. You mean his handlers wrote an angry speech and he'll read it? Yes, that's the most likely scenario of what's about to happen. We'll see. I mean, we'll see what comes of this. We'll see what happens. I'm not expecting anything groundbreaking. I mean, he's probably going to talk about how terrible Donald Trump is and how he's the next Hitler, or probably he's worse than Hitler. And he'll take this opportunity to bash Trump on a national stage. I think a good portion of this is for the simple fact of he knows that we're waiting on his response to him running. So I think he's taking advantage of the national spotlight, or his team is taking advantage of the national spotlight. One, to rehabilitate the man, because what we saw in the debates was total trash. And the second portion of that is why you have a captive audience, why you have an audience that wants to see you speak, to see if you're going to eventually step down. Take advantage of it, get some of your talking points in, because you may not have that audience next time. So I think those are probably the driving factors behind why this speech was publicized and why people like myself are watching this. I mean, to be frank, I really don't care what Joe Biden has to say, unless what he has to say is, I'm finally going to step down, like I alluded to, or like I should, for best of the country, or because Obama's making me, whatever fits the bill for that specific time. So What's up, Max Mara? It's funny how YouTube Machine seems to promote the MSNBC video as one of the top ones on the SCOTUS decision. Its title, Supreme Court Rules That Trump is Not Fully Immune from Criminal Charges. Well, of course they're going to spin it. I haven't read the entire uh, decision from the United States Supreme Court yet. Haven't had a chance to. I've been gone all day, just got home. But I intend on doing so. And I've heard a lot of pundits opine on what the ruling means, but as we know, that only means about half of what it truly is most of the time. Um, so we'll see. We'll see what comes of it, and we'll see what it actually means. But I'm really truly curious to see what Biden's going to say in response. I think it's dangerous if he comes out and we all know that there are some questionable things going on in the Biden administration. So if he comes out in strong opposition to it, uh, I guess they're Democrats, so they don't care if they're hypocrites. But it does make it kind of hypocritical moving forward if Joe comes out to show strong dissent with this opinion and then ends up using the opinion. So it's interesting, and there should be some sober thought given into the response, but we all know that's not how politics works here in the great year of 2024. So that's likely not how it's going to work in this instance either. So, as you can see, the White House says it will begin shortly. Got to make sure the meds kick in before Joe stops out. It was allegedly supposed to start at 7:45, so we do have about 6 minutes left on their clock. So, seen a few lefties making memes with Biden going, SEAL Team 6, I have a job for you, and it's a picture of Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, so I haven't wavered from that. I think there was a progression. I think it was the fact that they were going to try and indict him. That didn't work. There was a progression of things that they were going to try and do, and I think the last is eliminating Donald Trump, and I think that's there's some speculation that it could be why they're trying to get rid of Secret Service protection and Epstein him in jail. I don't even think you need to go that far. You have the entire weight of the United States government. You can eliminate anybody you want on this planet. I don't care how good his Secret Service protection is. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it's my country's birthday. I was gonna post something in Discord and then I forgot. Happy Canada Day. To our neighbors to the north. Please take some of our Mexicans. It would be great. They're your birthday present from us to you. Some of our illegal aliens that have crossed the border. So happy birthday, Canada, and please take some of our illegals. It would be great. So other than that, I don't think that he's going to address his obvious need to step down. I wish he would, but I don't think that's very likely. I was really hopeful that was going to be the topic of this conversation, but it's looking less and less like that. So I would assume that we'll get a very short, very Biden-esque, probably 10-minute speech on the Supreme Court ruling. I would assume it's going to be generally as normal. There's not going to be any questions, no follow-up. I think it will just probably be response to the Supreme Court that's been written by one of his advisors, and then we'll go on our way. So, but remains to be seen. Maybe he could. It'd be great if he could take some questions, because that would relieve some of the question marks that people have if he could coherently answer a question, but I don't even think that's possible, so I don't see him doing it. But So other than that, the Trump campaign, Trump released a message on Truth Social. Quote, a big win for our Constitution and democracy. Proud to be an American. And that's something posted to Truth Social from President Donald John Trump. So Biden announces he's a zombie. We don't really need an announcement on that one, but I did not watch either, and I had every intention of. It's been a busy day, but I wanted to see what Karine Jean-Pierre, how she handled the press conference today. But I have not. So if anybody has any words of wisdom from that debacle, I thought that'd be kind of fun to watch. Because, questions were coming in about his resignation and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, we're at 7:43, so about 2 minutes. We should see the president, former vice president. You're more likely to get skid mark addressed with a French pair of depends than question marks. Yeah. I'm not saying they'll do it. I'm just saying that would be a move that, if possible, could make him much more human and not a decrepit pile of shit. But I didn't say we were going to get it. I just said it would be probably a good idea for the administration to maybe let him answer a question or two. But the likelihood is we're not going to. I mean, it's just too dangerous as to what he might say or how he might say it. So, and this is from the White House, allegedly. I don't know specifically where it's going to be. I don't know if it's from his fake White House office, because allegedly he has a secondary White House office, or if this is from the real deal, the real thing, but remains to be seen. So, what's up, Husky? Oh, Joe Musco. I agree. I don't see how you can continue and stay in the race. It really doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but it wouldn't be the first time the Democrats voted in a corpse. So I can't imagine how blah this one will be. They can't undo the bell ringing. It's been wrong. Here he is. We'll join the
Good evening. The presidency is the most powerful office in the world. It's an office that not only tests your judgment, perhaps even more importantly, it's an office that can test your character. Because you not only face moments when you need the courage to exercise the full power of the presidency, you also face moments where you need the wisdom to respect the limits of the power of the office of the presidency. This nation was founded on the principle that there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. Today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed. For all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do. This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent, because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone. This decision today has continued the court's attack in recent years on a wide range of long-established legal principles in our nation, from gutting voting rights and civil rights, to taking away a woman's right to choose, to today's decision that undermines the rule of law of this nation. Nearly 4 years ago, my predecessor sent a violent mob to the U.S. Capitol to stop the peaceful transfer of power. We all saw it with our own eyes.
Fuck you, Joe.
We sat there and watched it happen that day. Attack on the police, the ransacking of the Capitol, a mob literally hunting down the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, gallows erected to hang the Vice President, Mike Pence. I think it's fair to say it's one of the darkest days in the history of America. Now the man who sent that mob to the U.S. Capitol is facing potential criminal conviction for what happened that day. And the American people deserve to have an answer in the courts before the upcoming election. The public has a right to know the answer about what happened on January 6th before they are asked to vote again this year. Now, because of today's decision, that is highly, highly unlikely. It's a terrible disservice to the people of this nation. So now the American people have to do what the courts should have been willing to do, but will not. The American people have to render a judgment about Donald Trump's behavior. The American people must decide whether Donald Trump's assault on our democracy on January 6th makes him unfit for public office in the highest office in the land. The American people must decide if Trump's embrace of violence to preserve his power is acceptable. Perhaps most importantly, American people must decide if they want to entrust the president once again, the presidency, to Donald Trump, now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it. You know, the outset of our nation, it was the character of George Washington, our first president, to define the presidency. He believed power was limited, not absolute. And that power always resides with the people, always. Now, over 200 years later, today's Supreme Court decision, once again, it'll depend on the character of the men and women who hold that presidency that are going to define the limits of the power of the presidency, because the law will no longer do it. I know I will respect the limits of the presidential powers I have for 3.5 years, but any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law. I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote. So should the American people dissent. I dissent. May God bless you all. May God help preserve our democracy. Thank you. May God protect our troops.
All right, so that was about 5 minutes. So the timestamp on when his speech kind of started to where it ended, subtracting the two, that was about 5 minutes. It sounded more like a campaign speech than a anything on what actually is going on. So many things in 5 minutes. That's not at all what the law said, that it was unchecked. I do know that much from the little bit that I've dug into it. It isn't an unchecked power, for one. For two, this isn't going to destroy democracy or, bring Donald Trump whatever. All this was, in my opinion, the correct ruling that official acts taken as president should be protected. It's vital for the president to do the job without fear of prosecution for making the wrong decision or the wrong choice. He answered no questions. The entire speech was about 5 minutes, and it was obviously pre-written and could have been pre-taped. Could possibly have been pre-taped. I don't know. We'll never know that. One of the questions he did get is, Joe, are you going to drop out? Obviously didn't address that, just leave the nation hanging. But he came out here and lied and lied and lied and made some bullshit and then went off. And this is unfortunately the leadership that we have in this country right now. If he does, he didn't announce it tonight. I hope Joe doesn't drop out. I voted for him in the primary for a reason. Let's go, Brandon. Yeah. I hope he kind of stays in the race. I think it would be best for the country. But this makes it even more of a if this guy gets elected, then something fucky happened with the ballots. I mean, what else is there to say? It was garbage. It was ridiculousness. It was again a Democrat and Joe Biden talking point. There's really nothing substantive here. It was just something to say yet again how bad Donald Trump was, and all that good stuff. I don't know. The leadership in the White House is frustrating. I think the intention behind it was to come out and say, yeah, he is he is still breathing. Because I'm not sure people thought that after the debate performance. But yeah, I mean it's just more garbage from the Biden campaign. Again, lied to the American people, and we'll see. They've been talking about fixing the court or adding new justices. I mean, it was 6-3. Essentially, what are you going to try and do? Add another 3, 4, 5 justices? So we'll see if that's one of his things that he'd like to push coming out of this term and going into the election. I think that's one of the terrible things that we have to look forward to is that he has a legislature. So he has both the House and the Senate, and he is essentially a lame duck president. I don't see any conceivable way without significant cheating that this man is back in the Oval Office in 2025 and beyond. So that could be one of the dangerous consequences of a president getting ready to leave, is that he pulls out all the stops and does things like add Supreme Court justices or start to codify, his abortion law. I don't think they will, because they like to be able to have the talking point on it. But that's one of the consequences of this we could see is some pretty radical things coming out of the White House in either executive order or being pushed through Congress. So, I meant to ask you, why do you think California Governor Newsom will be VP for Camel Toe? I think that's probably, I don't know. There's got to be some things that get ironed out between now and then. I think if it continues to go, if he steps down, I think he would be the natural, and they would turn on heels up pretty damn quick, and then ascend Newsom to power. I think that's the only way to get him in if they wanted to go that route. If Biden's not stepping down, then obviously that leaves an entire avenue of things open. The Harris campaign seems to be pretty pissed off that they're going to pass over her to go to somebody else. That's the rumors going around town. So I think they have to offer Kamala something comparable, and maybe the governor of California is just comparable enough that they can get rid of her. And I mean, how bad can you really fuck up California at this point? So that's kind of my thought, is they have to trade her almost an even, so they don't have to deal with the fact that they're replacing the first Black female, Indian female whatever other race she's claimed, female, to pass her over for the presidency. So I think they have to give her something, and Newsom's job seems to be the most realistic possibility if it goes that route. Now again, I don't think there's a shot in hell that Joe wins this election. I think in 2020, along with cheating, I think there was a lack of enthusiasm among the voter base. We just went through 2016. We were complacent as a voting bloc or a voting group, and I think that contributed. It's going to have to be too big to, I think Trump calls it too big to rig, which is a pretty good one. But it's going to have to be too big to rig. We're going to have to come out in overwhelming numbers so they can't cheat. And we were damn close. Like, they had to get pretty desperate in the last one. Yeah, and Forbidden's right. The DNC has shit for candidates. I mean, shit for candidates. Like, there's really not. I mean, you're not going to put up Nancy. You're not going to run Hillary or let her anywhere near anything. You really have Newsom. Big Mike has said it doesn't want it. Doesn't want the presidency. So I don't see that being a possibility personally. So I think that's your way around the legality of things is removal of Kamala as soon as she gets elected or assumes power. And she may go to the governor of California. But as far as who's going to be on the ballot, it's going to be Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, or some combination of Biden, Harris, or just Harris. So don't forget Biden was dragged into primary because the entire field of Democrats. Yeah. Yeah, if you look at some of the primary numbers and the way that Biden won that said primary, I mean, that was pretty disgraceful, the people they put up. We actually looked through it the other day because we were looking for approvals. Or there's obviously Marianne Williamson, there's RFK Jr., which are both registered to run for president. And then I believe the guy's name is Dean Phillips, if I'm not mistaken. So those are your kind of potential candidates. So, and none of those are going to get people excited to go out and vote. Your one hope is to have people vote yet again against Donald Trump, but I think the people for Trump strongly outnumber the people against him at this point. So Biden says swapping him out is not an option. Yeah, that's the same thing I'm hearing, based on Hunter's advice. So our country, Joe's top advisor is Hunter Biden. So that makes you feel comfortable. RFK is a wild card for a stalemate in Congress to handpick a Dem. Yeah, and he's gaining significance. I don't think RFK wins any state outright. I think that he'll get close. I think that he ultimately takes numbers away from the Democrat side more, because I don't know of a conservative that's actually like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm gonna go vote for RFK Jr. And if you are a quote conservative and you do think that, one, you probably shouldn't be a conservative anymore, and two, maybe you should take a look at it again, because he has some pretty liberal stances on things like guns and things like that. He said some good things on other topics, but when you look at some of his truthful ideology, I wouldn't be so fast to go jump over there with him. So, but yeah, the Biden speech was exactly what I kind of thought it was going to be. I said 10 minutes, and it was less than 5, no questions, and nothing that anybody wanted to hear. So my concern is who Trump pick for VP. I mean, whoever it is, hope they would carry on Trump policies. Well, I think that's our biggest thing going forward is who is going to replace Trump in the next election cycle. I think Trump will make it through his term if he gets there, hopefully. So I mean, health wise, I don't know how bad the Democrats are going to want to take him out. I still think that's what's going to happen is the Democrats are going to take him out before November. For the record, but I'm just some asshole on the internet. So I think that's the most likely scenarios that they take out Trump. If they don't, I think Trump makes it through his 4 years, and the question's going to be moving forward: who is our next Trump? Who is our next person that carries forward America first? And it's not Jim Jordan. It's not what's his dick in Florida, Gates. It's not anybody that's currently on the board. It's I've come around on Ramaswamy because Trump feels comfortable with him by everything we can see. So I'm a little bit more comfortable with Ramaswamy. But it's not Vivek. It's not DeSantis. We saw that in this cycle. Like there's really not a strong America First Trump-like person to carry on the legacy and move our country out of the bullshit and into more of the America First vision of our country that's out there yet. 4 years is a long time, though. 4 years is a long time, and I know probably 9. What has it been? 9. 9 years ago, we probably wouldn't have. I mean, Trump was on no one's radar, like the America First, the Trump thing. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea how much can transpire in 4 years and who can come up. I mean, I'm 35 now. Just saying. I'm not hell-bent on Jim Jordan. I think his best place is in Congress. I don't know that I'd vote for him for president. So I like him where he's at. Not to start trouble, but I'm freaking out about the Social Security check count on just 5. I can tell you this, Jude. There is Social Security is such a hot topic, for one. It's foreseeably not going anywhere until it runs out of money, and then they're still going to continue to fund that, and they're still going to continue to bring money into that. So I don't think Social Security is going anywhere at all anytime soon. What my opinion is I think that Joe Biden brought it up because if you look at his poll numbers with retired Americans or Americans that are of Social Security age, his polling is terrible. And I think it's the normal way of doing things to try and scare people, to try and utilize your thought. I don't think, I mean, it would be suicide for anybody to touch Social Security. It's an entitlement that's always going to be there until it completely is gone. And I think even at the point where the money's gone, they're going to continue to fund it because it would just nobody's going to risk their career, nobody's going to risk their entire political thought process on getting rid of Social Security. I mean, it's an entitlement that's been there for a really long time, and it's going to be there for a really long time. So I understand the concern. I truly do. So since Congress doesn't have to pay into Social Security, but they're eligible to collect 50 to 100K a year out of it, should be illegal. Well, and that's, I think that there needs to be some reforms to the program for sure. We can't keep funding an entitlement that loses as much as Social Security does. So the idea was to put it in and get it out. Obviously, it's been mismanaged significantly, and I think there needs to be some reforms to it. But as far as the benefits, you're never going to find someone that's going to reduce or eliminate benefits for seniors or anybody who's on Social Security, because I mean it would just would not be a viable career move. So I think it's largely a fear tactic. And if there's one thing that we can say definitively about President Trump, is the man said exactly what he was going to do, and he did it. Like, he didn't try to hide the ball. He didn't really bullshit much. He came out and said it, and he did it. And he hasn't alluded in any way towards getting rid of Social Security. And it wouldn't be a good political move for him, because of his voting base is a lot of, Social Security age and retired Americans. So personally, I don't see it going anywhere, and I don't see in any way that it goes anywhere. So just ignore that then, meaty. What did you do, stingy? He's gonna make me use caps lock. What? I don't know what I missed. Did he read end quote? Hang on, we'll go back.
The presidency is the most powerful.
Hang on.
Perhaps most importantly, the American people must decide if they want to entrust the president once again, the presidency, to Donald Trump, now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it. The outset of our nation, it was the character of George Washington, our first president, to define the presidency.
I assume it's
He believed power was limited, not absolute. And that power always resides with the people, always. Now, over 200 years later, today's Supreme Court decision, once again, it'll depend on the character of the men and women who hold that presidency that are going to define the limits of the power of the presidency, because the law will no longer do it. I know I will respect the limits of the presidential powers I have for 3.5 years, but any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law. I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote.
He did say end of quote. Holy hell, he did it again. That was your rousing, let's throw him back out there and make it, wow. Thank you, Cheese, for that. I appreciate it. Now back to Stingy's question, and then got you article? Oh, you sent me a photo of the gallows? Send it on Twitter? Damn it, Stingy. We all know the Pence gallows were garbage anyways, but if I can find it real quick, I'll go to it. Yeah, there we go. There's those gallows. It says this is art right on the side of it. I don't know if I'd be terribly intimidated by that. And just because I say what I mean, and I give it to everybody straight, and I don't mind any dissent or difference of opinion. If somebody has a question or wants to call me on something, go for it. But sorry, I was reading that article. Yeah, I think that RFK has a problem and shouldn't. Let me preface it with that. I think RFK has a problem with his voice, and anybody who's heard him speak, that it's going to drive people away. Not that it should. I'm not saying it should. But I think that's one of his biggest hurdles to overcome. Yeah, I'm reading the other one too. So I'm reading the other one too. I'll bring it up in just a second. But as far as RFK, he has a problem with his messaging and his ability to speak, and that's not his fault. And I'm not faulting him for it or trying to say that he's a bad person or anything. But it's just like other candidates we've seen in the past. If you can't articulate what you're trying to say, then you're normally not going to be in the office. And I guess that we have an exception with this potato, but you know, so but yeah, so and another article from Stingy, and then we'll pop off here. Supreme Court impeachment plan released by AOC. AOC announced plans to introduce articles of impeachment against the U.S. Supreme Court justices on Monday after the court ruled that presidents have full or immunity for official actions. The court on Monday ruled that former presidents have absolute immunity. I don't know about that for official acts, but no immunity for private acts. Case centers around a federal case of former President Donald Trump's alleged attempts at overturning the 2020 presidential election results. So AOC has the intention of impeaching Supreme Court justices because she disagrees with one single ruling that they made. And this is the kind of shit that I said watch out for, because Democrats are desperate and they're gonna do some stuff like this. Like, this is gonna become more mainstream and more of the norm as we continue to move on. So, but like I said, there was not much substance of this speech. Not much at all. And again, he didn't take questions. If you missed the speech, no worries. It was 5 minutes long. Go ahead and go back and you'll be able to see it in full. So, but it was not the speech I was hoping for. And I would assume that at this point, you're probably not going to get a resignation from Biden. He's probably going to remain in the race until further notice. And I would assume that the party's done putting pressure on him, because I thought that's what tonight's speech was going to be, and it was not. So as always, I thank everybody for watching, and I will certainly catch y'all on the next one. Hope everyone has a good day, and I'll see you soon.